Hi, in this tutorial we'll cover a possible stylized animation workflow using Blender and the AI-assisted animation software, Cascadeur. This workflow is useful as it helps the user transition quickly from layout to stylized animation without having to juggle both body mechanics and stylization at the same time. Let's get started. First, let's say you have a layout with a jumping animation like this. With the movement in mind, let's open Cascador and make a new scene. I'll be importing a default Cascador rig for this tutorial, but you may import any model you'd like. You just have to quick rig it in program. Activate Cascador's Auto Pose mode by clicking this button. Auto Pose dynamically adjusts inactive nodes around the points you move to naturally relax the model into more balanced poses. To activate a node, simply select it and move it, or press Shift-Z to toggle its state. Activating nodes affords the user more control over the rig. Set a new keyframe by clicking a frame on the timeline and hitting the blue key icon. I'm going to set 1 every 5 frames just to get my poses in. Once I'm done setting up the poses, I'll select all the keys and change the interpolation to Bezier. Now I'll change up the overall timing to something I like. Now let's open up this drop-down and adjust the timing for the body, arms, and legs. At the same time, let's make sure the feet stay planted by setting their interpolation to clamped whenever they're in contact with the ground. Let's change the arms to FK mode so that they swing rather than translate. Looks like we'll have to set an in-between here for the arms to help the swing a bit. And another here for some follow-through. Now some final tweaks to the timing, and done! Let's export our sequence as an FBX. I'm using the free version of Cascadeur, which has export limitations based on frame count and number of joints in the scene. The exact limitations can be found on the official Cascadeur website. I encourage you to buy the full version. If you want to keep using the free version, you may have to export in sections. If you are using multiple characters, you may have to export the characters as separate FBXs as well. Now let's head back to Blender and see about importing it. Now, odds are the animation will be scaled or positioned differently than you'd like it. To fix that, open up the NLA editor, which we'll use in just a second. Select the highest thing in the bone hierarchy that has its own individual keyframes, but doesn't change values. You're looking for what's effectively the root bone, but it might not always be named that. In this case, the name is armature. I'll go ahead and delete these keyframes. This is so that we can transform the root bone as much as we want, whenever we want, without the keyframes getting in the way. Now with the keyframes gone, push down the remaining keyframes into a track in the NLA editor. With that done, we can finally scale up our Cascador character to be roughly the same height as our target character. Back in the NLA editor, you can move around the track, speed it up, slow it down, anything you need really. Let's set up a reference model. Begin by hiding the armature bones. Now select the mesh and navigate to its object properties. Under Viewport Display, click on the color swatch and finagle the alpha down to something acceptable. To see the change, go up to your viewport shading options and set the color to either object or attribute. I'm going to make him a calmer shade of blue to help me differentiate between the two models. I'll set up the mesh to be unselectable and get started setting up the camera. Final camera animation is a must for this step because we'll be putting our target rig into camera space. I'll explain what that is in a moment. With our camera animation finished, I'll delete the old layout animation keyframes, select the root bone, set a bone constraint, pick child of, and target the camera. Now our rig is in camera space. It's parented to the camera in such a way that from the camera's perspective, the rig doesn't move. This will help us to simulate animating with transparent cells like 2D animations do. Let's set up a ground plane. Now we can start animating. I start by setting up poses for the extremes of the animation, just pose matching to the reference. With all the main poses set, now we can start on in-betweens. Having the reference rig visible at this point is optional. A tool that I use a lot in this segment is the breakdowner, which makes it really easy to manually set a pose in between two keyframes. After choosing a breakdown pose, I'll adjust it slightly for flow's sake. Here I'm adding some random poles and cubes so that we have some reference of distance traveled in space. In this pass, we'll also be exaggerating poses by squashing, stretching, and scaling individual body parts. We'll constantly be looking at the camera view during this phase to make sure we maintain a good silhouette. I find it helpful to exaggerate the main poses first before adding in-betweens. Don't be scared to get crazy with the poses. It'll likely get wacky in any other view, but that's the best part. A helpful tip is that if you change your transformation orientation to local, translating on the Z-axis in your camera view will bring it towards or away from the camera. Now we'll do one final pass to add in some smears. The way you do this will vary from rig to rig, but try shoving bones around, scaling, or even adding a lattice modifier on top of your rig. And before you know it, we're done. That's the workflow. I hope this was useful and aids your animation endeavors. If you find a way to improve this workflow, send me a line. I'd love to hear about it.